Hello, everybody. It's me, Jackie Clayton, editor of Recruiting Daily. Am I down there? Editor with Recruiting Daily, and I'm excited for a very, very exciting show. As a side note, this is a show for you, so we want you to ask your questions. Do that by putting them in the bottom here. You see the side and put there, "Hi, Christy," and then you can also tweet it out. Use the hashtag #RDaily, and we will make sure to get you, get your questions answered. If we don't, we will email them to Mr. James and get them answered. That being said, we're going to jump right into it. Now, James, I've known you for a little while.
Yeah, we've talked quite a number of times. We've bounced around quite a bit.
For a couple of years now.
Yes.
You've got, one of the best headshots on LinkedIn I've ever seen.
Strangely, I'm changing it, so thanks. And yeah, I know. It's so old. I had to change it.
Well, it's a great one. I'll start using it instead of you. But if
Please.
people don't know who you are, well, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm James Ellis. So right now I am the War for Talent, and I have the podcast, The Talent Cast. I know, cleverly titled. I have been doing employer brand and recruitment marketing for about 4 years. I've done agency work, I've done in-house work, I've done a lot of stuff. And before that, I was really just a marketing guy. I did everything from B2B and B2C and nonprofit and state government and small business and software and .coms and event marketing and pharmaceutical marketing, and I've done all the marketings. So yeah, and I just landed in recruitment marketing. It's just it seems to be a sweet spot for me, and I love doing it. I love talking about it, and my focus has been employer brand for a bit now, and that's what I'm here to talk about, I guess.
Well, yes, that is what you're here to talk about. But I've always found it really weird. I don't understand, why is an employer brand different than a company brand?
Okay, yeah, so this is a great question, because there are definitely schools of thought about this sort of thing, and if you talk to a corporate brander, they have very clear reasons why that a corporate brand has nothing to do with employer brand or is exactly the same as employer brand, and I think it's in the middle. I think, let's say you're Netflix and your corporate brand is all about providing entertainment to the masses for a reasonable price on demand, and your employer brand is about how it's about how much work you're gonna do and how much success you're gonna find. Those two things don't really intertwine. If you're in the entertainment business, you have to have an entertainment thinking focused employer brand, just like Disney does. Disney doesn't treat its employees like employees. They're all cast members, right? They're in the entertainment business, thus their brand is connected to entertainment, and their employer brand is connected to entertainment in some fashion. If you have divergent brands, it's, the center will not hold, so to speak. So you have to kind of say, how do you take the corporate brand, i.e. the reason the brand exists, and say, how do we translate that to someone who might apply for a job? And it's not going to be exactly the same. I always call it the facet in a larger jewel, because you've got corporate brand, and you've got product brand, and you've got investor brand sometimes, and then you've got employer brand. So it's just one piece of it, but they all have to coalesce together. If they're all disparate and all over the place, it's going to look and feel like what my hands are doing right now. So they have to be connected. They can't be completely separate.
But you said corporate brand. Is a corporate brand the same thing as an employer brand? I would have thought that would
really
share.
No, so for example, take a Nike, and I don't have any insider knowledge on Nike at all, but Nike's brand is that it wants to make every individual an athlete, even chubby people like me. You can be an athlete, just buy some shoes and buy a t-shirt and Kobe or LeBron or whatever. It's like, okay. Their employer brand is going to be about, it has to be connected to being an athlete, that effectively, if anybody can be an athlete, if anybody can achieve as an athlete using Nike products, thus employees should be able to achieve more being a Nike person. So you can see there's a connection. They don't have to be triathletes, I would imagine, but you have to be connected to that sense of achievement, that sense of anybody can step up to the plate and do the work and do something interesting and just do it, which isn't a brand, it's a tagline, so don't get that confused. But they have to be connected. If Nike's employer brand was all about how much money you're going to make or how much status you're going to have or the amazing technology, that's their employer brand. Those things are all true. People who work at Nike have status, and I'm sure they get paid a wonderful salary, and I'm sure they have great technology, but that's not what's core to being Nike. The Nike core is about being that anybody can achieve if they work, very, very hard, and that's true to employer brand and corporate brand.
So, is there a point where you could be doing where those two really don't connect?
Yeah.
Have you seen an example of that?
I can't think of a good example where that makes sense for very long. I think what happens is that a company either really knows its employer brand or really knows its corporate brand, and the other side is lying to itself. For example, Goldman Sachs, who I like to use an example because they are the perfect example of a company that just cares about, we're here to make money and be incredibly high status company. They don't care about work-life balance. They don't care about its supporting environment. They don't care about any of the other stuff. It's about money and it's about status, and good for them. Some people, that's all they care about, and that's a great place to work. So if they tried to tell you that we're all about work-life balance, after we finish laughing at them, we'd say, yeah, I think you're full of it, and we got to go elsewhere. So that you have to be authentic to who you are. And I think if you are truly authentic, why you make what you make and why a person shows up to make that thing, they're very close. They're very connected, and trying to separate them artificially, it can't last for very long. One of them will fall over.
But
come on.
What if like either the job that they're going to be doing is not real pleasant?
Oh, yeah. So that's the trick.
That they work for is not like, it's just not like, okay, people in waste management.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you make that an exciting place?
Well, I would say you don't have to make every job exciting. Some people, look, there are plenty of people out there who are more than happy being post officers and DMV people and garbage people who would say, look, I'm not here because I'm going to devote my career to this idea. I think post office employees, and they're fantastic, and thank you for my mail every 6 days a week or whatever it is today. Thank you, but you are there because it's a regimented system. You take a test, you pass a test, there are rules, it's very structured. You show up at a certain time, you leave at a certain time, there are rules-driven spaces. I would go completely bonkers in that kind of environment. And there are people who are post office employees who would look at my job or your job and say, I'm going to go bonkers if I had no sense of what my day-to-day was, or I was making up as I was going along, or I was trying to figure it out. It's not about exciting. It's about what fits your personality and really what fits your motivation. So go back to Nike for a second. I don't know why I'm tacking onto that, but hey, Portland, how you doing? I presume. You're right. The person who designs the super cool, sexy Flyknit shoe that's an innovative, yes, it's innovation, but it's also about achievement. The person who works the machine, who helps the robot to figure it out, yeah, it's kind of innovation, but it's also about achieving. It's about how do I build this properly? How do I make support? The person who makes a shirt, the person who staffs a store, it's about personal achievement. It ties into it. That's why you can't have an employer brand that's about, we're all about something so specific that it only fits the CEO or the vice president of marketing or that one person. It has to be something that you can translate out. So what usually happens is that you have a brand. So for example, I'll go to Amazon. Amazon's employer brand is We Pioneer, or We Are Pioneers. I think it's really We Pioneer. But that's true if you work in a warehouse, and that's true because you're working with robots and you're trying to find optimizations and how to squeeze more value out of the seconds you have to pack a box and what have you. It's true for the developers. It's true for their marketing teams. It's true for their product marketing teams. It's true for everybody there. It's all about we're pioneering. And sometimes it's about making a TV show, and sometimes it's about making sure that your toilet paper gets delivered before you even know you needed it, which, by the way, that'd be magic. And please don't not solve that problem. For the love of God, everybody needs that problem solved. But they're all pioneering. And so what they do is they say it's a nice vague idea. Now what happens is because that's a fairly vague idea, you create pillars under that brand. You say, okay, what does that mean? So that you can say, here's 3 or 4 or 5 pillars that support that big, broad, vague idea that give kind of concrete credence to that big idea. And a given person can say, I really tie into 2 or 3 of those brands, or two or three of those pillars. So yes, we pioneer, but that also means I'm curing polio. I mean, where I'm crossing the Mississippi with just a burro and a native guide. I mean, pioneer means a lot. What does Amazon really mean by that? And while I have no doubt that if you asked Jeff Bezos to go and circumnavigate the globe, he seems like the kind of guy who would say, give me 20 minutes and I'll figure something out. That's not what they do. That's that they pioneer in a very particular way. So what happens is people connect to those pillars, whether it's about the amazing work, it's the amazing experience, it's the environment, it's the goal or mission, whatever those pillars might be, they connect to one of those. That's how you make it so that anybody at entry level, senior level, mid-level, lawyers, marketers, manufacturers, warehouses, they can all find a piece to hook onto and say, yep, that sounds and feels like me, which is ultimately all you want to happen. That sounds and feels like me. That's when those connections get made.
Okay, that makes sense now. Now I'm getting it.
Cool. Thanks for listening. Got to go, kids. Bye. Click.
No. Well, okay. Well, I do find it interesting that, at one point all of these things kind of fell into the recruiter's lap.
Mm-hmm.
As recruiting manager, we started to pull it out. Like we used HOTUS to try to start that process. Then we made it a whole separate site. I started making IT an even more separate site.
Yep.
Because their culture was completely different than the whole company. They were on a floor by themselves.
Yep.
Starbucks. That's what we didn't have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about what Recruiter does in the non-recruiting world, there's marketing and sales. So the marketing kind of says, this is what this product's all about. This is who needs this product, and the salesperson shows up and closes the deal. And over here in recruitment, you have employer brand recruitment marketing and the recruiter, right? It's the exact same thing. There was a time that marketing really wasn't real. Marketing was, in the early 20th century, marketing wasn't really a thing. It was just it was an advertisement, it's a little thing in a Sears robot catalog, right? Marketing wasn't real. It was like, I need that product, you have that product, I'm buying that product, and a salesperson would facilitate that process. And as we get bigger and bigger, and you realize there's more products out there, and you need to make a name for that product, and then you say, look, these 4 products are all in service of this goal, and that goal, we're going to call that a brand. That grew up in the last 50, 60 years, right? Marketing is going through the same process. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, recruiters did the whole thing, but they did it on a very retail basis. Their job was to beat the bushes, find the candidates, source the candidates, talk to them, give them the pitch, explain why, understand that person's motivation, and explain why they should work at their company, and really close the deal and get into the hiring manager and make that happen. The world's evolved. So now marketing and brand is up here saying, okay, look, of the bajillion, and that's a real number, bajillion, however bajillion jobs there are on Indeed and LinkedIn and Glassdoor and all the job boards, a query in a search box isn't going to show you the job you should apply for. It's going to present to you 5,000 of the bajillion jobs, and a third of them are promoted, so they're not even jobs you'd ever want. It's like, I don't want to be a hairdresser. What are you talking about? That's a crazy idea.
In Alaska, on a plane.
Exactly. And then you're like, well, you misread this completely. You have 1,000 jobs to go through. And yes, you could do them by hand, and that'd be a full-time job. Brand helps you say, yes, no, no, yes, 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 no, 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 yes, and turn that into a very quick filter and say, these are companies and places I would consider, and I will spend an extra minute reading the job description, learning about the brand, and seeing if I want to move forward. If I just gave you 5,000 jobs and say, one of these is going to be to change your life, it's fantastic, like a lottery winning level, change your life, and the rest are going to be kind of, have fun. You would hate me. You would hate me. I would be the biggest jerk on earth. Brand says, it turns some of them on. It like lights them up and say, hey, here are the 10, 20, 50, whatever that you should consider, and see if you can connect the dots. Because in the end, let's be fair, job descriptions suck.
Right.
I don't think really? What? He said that? Oh my God. Yeah, right. But the worst part is job descriptions are all the same, right? There are people who publish books of saying, here's a job description for this job, take it and go. A job description at 2 different companies may sound exactly the same. So you take a job like a project manager at Google and a project manager at American Standard, who makes toilets, and nothing wrong with that, and thank God they exist, and I appreciate that. And why this is
toilet paper and toilets now.
What is with the potty humor? What is going on? My kid is potty trained. I don't know where my head is.
Okay.
But the job descriptions are effectively the same.
Right.
But they're radically different jobs, right? They're radically different experiences, radically different paths to success, radically day-to-day experiences. And if the job descriptions are no indication of what a job is, the brand's there to kind of say, let me help you read between the lines.
Okay. See, it's still like, okay, do this for me, because we kind of went through a little bit about what a recruiter does during the time of the day. What does, and Audra and I had asked this question, like what does your day look like? How do you break that up, and where are your priorities in branding? Is that a hard question?
My job, my day-to-day, or a recruiter's day-to-day?
Your James Ellis
Yeah.
branding.
Okay. Okay, so that's, well, let us not quibble, even though I certainly could about those titles. My day is spent in two halves. One is understanding the big picture, understanding the need. Hey, we need to hire a lot of customer service, technology, developers, data scientists, marketers, whatever. I have to understand what the business is doing, what the business need is, where the gaps are, what the issues are, and then the other part of my day is spent, okay, tactically, how do I create these things that are concrete and meaningful and touchable and useful and have a, I don't know, a KPI, and have, if I launch a tweet and no one clicks on it, I used to say this in my last job when I used to focus more on content. I said, look, writing the tweet is not the task. The writing the tweet is not the value. What was the tweet in service of? What was the message it was trying to portray? Who was it trying to give it to? What time was it trying to give it to? What is the call to action, and what does that call to action lead you to? That's the big thing. So understanding the big picture and where any given blog post, tweet, event, tagline, hashtag, website,
all of that? It's
all of it.
Characters.
What's that? No, yeah.
140 characters.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is, if I tweet out, hey, we have a job, one, I sound like everybody else, right? Everybody says, here's a job. To which I say, the title isn't very descriptive to me, so why in the world am I looking? And then, by the way, I'm also not looking for a job, so I don't care about what you have to say. However, if you say, look at what someone on the front line did, something that was revolutionary, or, this is a place where someone on the front lines stopped the assembly line and changed our company. That's a story. That's something interesting. And you might equate it to BuzzFeed thinking, which I don't think is a bad thing. It's about getting people to understand the juicy nugget in that story. And then I go, oh, this company that talked about that, positive brand impression. Oh, that's interesting. And I hear another story about them, positive brand impression. And I see another tweet. And then, by the way, I just happen to see them in the news and something positive happened, brand impression. Over and over again, because a brand is a pattern. And I always go back to this metaphor of like a tile floor, right? It's a perfectly grid of tiles. And if one of them is the wrong color, one of them is twisted slightly, it breaks the pattern. It looks jarring. And I think, what if you owned an airline and you spent hundreds of millions of dollars telling everybody and telling the world how customer focused you were, and then one day one of your people called the cops on someone who wouldn't get out of their seat and they bloodied them up as they were getting him out of the seat? You obviated the $100 million investment in saying to the world, I'm all about customers, because you had one tile that was broken. So my job is to say, what are all the tiles, and make them all slightly come more into alignment. And that's not something that happens on day 1 or day 5 or day 100. It's about, today I focus on this tile, and tomorrow I focus on that tile, and 3 days from now I focus on that tile. Oh, and I have a really good day. 4 tiles kind of line up because of something I did here. Understanding how to create that alignment so that every new piece of content, every new story, every new idea that comes out continues to support that brand. And again, it goes back to those pillars and about that big story. Not just that it's glowingly positive all the time, sometimes it's negative. So for example, if you're in a company where, it's a kind of company where it's very flat, there's no management structure, it's a lot of kind of all over the place. And for some people, again, that the post office or DMV employees, they need that structure. They would look at it and say, this is insanity. This is crazy. How can anybody get anything done? And you look at that Glassdoor review and you're like, oh God, I would never work at this place. That no one knows what they're doing, no bosses, and no one's in charge. It's inmates running the asylum, blah, 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 blah. That same place can also be said to say, look, this is a place where if you step up and you decide to take ownership of something, you can take it as far as you want. No one's getting in your way. This is a place where we want you to take ownership and drive. Those places are the same, but one of them sounds atrocious and one of them sounds, to me anyway, like a fantastic place to work. So that's what I mean by aligning those tiles, so that the truth is never different. The company is the company, the brand is the brand. But how do I get everything to line up so that everything connects to those brand pillars that explains even the negative things are in service of something positive? You can go the other way. So for example, Google's famous for saying, why does everybody want to work for Google? Free M&Ms, 5 different milks in your coffee, fantastic food, massage rooms, nap chairs, bean bags, buses, on-site this, on-site that. You're like, great, that sounds amazing. I want to work there. Except the reason those things exist is so that you never, ever, 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 ever go home.
Right.
They turn their perks, that thing to kind of say, look, it sucks being here 18 and 20 hours a day, and so you don't have to sleep under your desk and order pizza every day. We're going to give you all those things so that you stick around and code. That became kind of core to who they are, that we care about our employees enough that we give them whatever they need, ... so long as they stay here and code like crazy people. That's how that's again how you take a negative and turn it into a positive. The focus isn't on the 18 to 20 hours, and I don't know if that's still true. That certainly was when their brand kind of got incepted and became famous. But everybody talks about the milk and the M&Ms and the food, and that's great, and that's fantastic. That's how you turn a negative into a positive, by reframing the idea.
No, but people do it all the time, and I won't mention names, but I have a friend who like tweets out what they eat or puts out on Snapchat almost every day, like what the muffin of the day is at their company. And it's like, I bet you got there early for that muffin, and you made sure that you took it to your desk. Other people saw the muffin. A friend of mine does the same thing with lunch, and I was like, are there any restaurants close by? Like, just I'm not criticizing. I'm just wondering.
I think that, and God bless HR, and what I'm about to say is going to make them mad, and I apologize in advance, but let's be fair. There's a kernel of truth in what I'm about to say. HR loves rules. They love structure. They love rules. They love that, and then their job is to keep companies from getting sued. So they get by that honestly. I get that, but they love rules. And so when someone like me says, "Hey, you should tell your story and you should showcase the little things that make them different," HR goes, "Great, done. Gonna do it every single day, exact same way because I love rules." No one gets into HR because they like the fast-paced nature of change, right? They love rules. They love rules. And so when you when they see the blog post or the article about, "Hey, you should do these things," they go, "Done, got it, check, check, check," and they do it forever. And so it's muffin of the day becomes, instead of, "Hey, we have muffins," and that's just this tiny piece of who they are, now it's their whole brand because someone said every single day you talk about muffins. Yeah, and that's where brand and HR clash because they're not good fits.
That's right.
They're really not. So you have to find that, and that's effectively half of my job, is to find that wiggle room to help HR say, "Look, I get why you have to be. I love that you are who you are. It's not me. It's not how I would live my life. I get that, but we all need all those different flavors. There's your diversity of thought. People who are crazy and people who are rigid. We have to live together. We have to work together." And find that wiggle room to say, how do I take who you are, this company is, and get people to understand it and embrace it and make it themselves and say, I can see myself in the company without breaking all of HR's rules about, oh, you can't say that and you can't do that. That's the game. That's what we have to do.
The delicate balance.
It truly is. Truly is.
We have about 7 minutes. I did want to get to another question, and if you have them, put them down here shortly because we don't have a lot of time. Audra and I, again, wanted to ask you, do you have a team, or are you solo in your efforts?
Yeah, so I had a boss a long time ago who referred to what I usually end up doing as one man invading China. Given the impossible task, how do you do that? And the truth is, one person can only do so much. So in my current role, I do have one person who reports directly to me, another person who's a dotted line reports to me. I am finagling to get another, just anybody, any set of hands. But really, even if I had a team of 20, even if I won the employer brand lottery and had all my minions doing my bidding and doing my dance, that's not what I want. What I want is for every employee to do a teeny bit on their own, to say, yes, I will hashtag that. I will make a sticker. I put that sticker on my laptop. I will send you a profile. I will send you a picture. I will show up to the event and be in that picture and be smiling. I will talk about the things that are amazing. I don't want me, no company wants me, as delightful as I may be, to be their brand. What I need to do is be the funnel and the conduit for all the stuff, which means encouraging all those people to do that tiny little bit. That's my job. And so it's not a function of how do I get 1 million people to do it, because I don't want them to do it. I want them to enable and influence and support and facilitate all the 1 million stories in a company of any size that I might never hear of. I want to build relationships so that someone in engineering says, hey, James, did you know we did blah, 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 blah? So I'd say, no, I would have no idea. Let me help you tell that story. That's a win for me. That's how you have to approach it. regardless of the company. And I've talked to companies who have massive teams, and it's like they still have to approach it as, how do we influence and support and enable and facilitate?
Now, what if somebody, I'm trying to play stump the teacher. I'm not doing a great job. You already know the answers. So what do you do to the person who says no? Like, how do you encourage people to do it when you know, like, traditionally, before you got there,
Yeah.
they didn't want to do it, or maybe they weren't proud of the brand, you know?
So I joke that if, as the owner of the employer brand, if I actually owned everything that influenced the employer brand, my title would be called CEO, President, Founder, Owner. I am not. So I have to support and help people. So what I have to think of is that, look, in a big company, there are plenty of people who kind of go, it's just a job. And I say, great, you're not going to step up. Great. There's a lot of other people who want to step up. But I'd rather have a handful of killer stories and a handful of ambassadors and people who are energetic and enthused about that brand than 1,000 or 10,000. You know, you got to, find the gems. Now, what happens is employer brand tends to be very feedback cyclical. So let's say you get 10 people who tell an amazing story about why they work for this company. 100 other people go, that sounds like why I work for the company, and I hadn't really heard it that way or put that way, and now I'm a little more engaged, and now I might tell my story, and another 1,000, and then she said me, he said me. It kind of ripples out from there. So being reminded, let's be fair, all of our jobs at some point in time suck. They're hard, they're painful, they're annoying, they're frustrating, they're anxiety-inducing, they're painful. And a lot of times we let that anxiety and all that stuff build up, and we walk into work going, you need to be reminded. You need to be reminded that, look, this is in service of a mission, a goal, your team, yourself, your own personal growth, whatever it is, you have to be reminded. And what I have to do is tell that person's story and tell it to that person. Now, that person may be in the company, and that person may be outside the company, but in the end, that story enables that kind of conversation.
Okay. So, do you use any technology to do that? Like, wait, 2 questions.
All the technology. All the technology.
Hey, I've got 2 questions. One is, what channels do you use? Is it web, social, whatever? And then the second question is, what type of technology do you use?
Yeah. So for my money, first off, let us assume that you don't have all unlimited resources. Why? Because I've met you all, and you all complain about how you don't have anything. Google complains about these things. So if Google and Facebook and these people complain about it, you can just shut up. We're all complaining about it. This is the baseline. It's like complaining about gravity. What? You're going to go to the moon and recruit? What are you going to do? So if you all have limited resources, you have to pick and choose your battles. What I would say is, right now, Instagram and LinkedIn is where you gotta be. They're very influential. If you spend money on Instagram, it reaches great audiences. If you can kind of start to spark that brand feeling in Instagram, it's incredibly powerful. Twitter, it's hard. It's hard to kind of connect because the Twitterverse is so massive and the movement is happening so crazy. It's hard to connect with those people, and the prices for how to reach out to those people on a promotional basis are not great. Facebook, if you are smart and target well, can be good, but the organic reach, I don't know what you're talking about. Then all those things connect to the brand, which you can house in a website, you can house in a blog, you can house in a corporate site, you can do a lot of different ways. But the idea is to say, let's use social as the feelers, the cat's whiskers out in the world to attract attention to this core idea. But the core idea is not the job. I think that's the biggest issue. Everybody says, well, let's just get into the job. It's like, look, that's like saying I need to get more people on my car lot. Well, if they're not ready to buy a car, what good was having them on the lot? So you need to get them in a position where they want to. I used to joke with a client brand of mine when I was an agency side. I said, look, you're a brand that's so big and famous, you could try and hide the apply button on your ATS, and you'd still get more job applicants than you knew what to do with. No one, you don't need more kind of funnel optimization. Everybody knows who you are in this area. Everybody wants to work for you. You're good there. What you need to do is focus on the top and get people to understand the why. Because if they understand the why, they get to self-select out. They say, it's about the mission, and I don't agree with the mission. Got to go buy. Or I agree with that mission. I have to work there. So the tools to support the employer brand, whether it's mission-based or role-based, or you're achieving some sort of public good or personal growth or whatever. That's what all those social tools are there to enable. But don't forget events. Don't forget being in people's faces. Don't forget your company does stuff. What is, I see, yeah, you've gotten an Amazon box lately. Have you noticed the tape is there and it's labeled, the actual packaging tape to get you to go sign up for Amazon Prime, as if everybody isn't one already?
Right.
That's the kind of thinking you need. What does your company do? How do you leverage those tools and those pieces? I highly, highly, highly recommend the following book. I think people who listen to me at all have heard me say this a lot. There's a book called A Beautiful Constraint. I forget the author off the top of my head. I think it's Adam Morgan and somebody else. It says, effectively, change your mindset. So it's not about how do I achieve this thing and what's the best practice. And I think best practices are lies, are horrible tricks that other people play on you. But if you say, where am I now? What do I have access to? And how do I get to where I want to be? That's the math you need to do. So if you need to get more applicants, what do you have more of than anybody else? Maybe you have more staff than anybody else. Use them. Maybe you have a big building. Use it. Maybe you have a big brand awareness, a corporate or product brand awareness. Use it. Maybe you have, you give all your staff extra free time to volunteer. Use it. What do you have that nobody else has, or you have it in abundance? Use that. Focus on that. Do not go, I have to buy the most expensive ATS and the most expensive CRM and the most expensive social advocacy tool and the most expensive this and my giant. And you don't need all those things. What do you need to accomplish? What do you have access to? And do the math. So that's how I would approach those things. So that's the kind of technology I use. So for example, I would love to spend money on a great big CRM, but I don't have the money. So what I have is a couple of very well-defined audience, a tech audience and a marketing audience and a local audience, and say, okay, I'm going to send you news every 2 months using like MailChimp and TinyLetter. I mean, these are free technology tools. They're not massive lists, so I can kind of push it out there, and it feels a little homey, it feels a little authentic, which is good. And that's how I kind of keep those leads warm. Now, as I prove that, I can go to my boss and say, this is working so well, can I have some cash? And I can do this on scale and support the funnel, and then everybody makes sense. Until I do proof of concept, I'm just a guy talking who has good ideas, maybe, sort of, maybe, who knows. Prove it, then you can ask for money. Once you prove it, businesses spend money, trust me. Once you can prove that there's a clear outcome, a value to them, HR doesn't have to spend it. Maybe the business side spends the money, because you can say, look, I'm promoting the business and I'm promoting better employees for your part of the business, and they'll find the money. The money's out there. It's just you have to prove it sometimes.
You know what? Guess what? We don't have any more time, James. I know. Audra said, I wish this was an hour, but I do wish it. We should have you on a webinar. I think
Okay.
this is bigger. I mean, do you mind? I mean.
Oh, God, talking to people about employer brand.
Our relationship has gone to the next level now, 4 years, like whatever. And
we're going to get matching belly button rings. That's where we're going.
That's right.
That's where we're going.
But I do appreciate everybody for being here, Dan and Christy and Audra and Catherine and Kelly and all y'all, because I'm from Texas. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here, and we will see all y'all next week. I appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye, guys. I think this is the hard part every way.